Welcome everyone to the Brand Fortress HQ podcast. I'm your host, John Stojan, along with my co-hosts, Matt Atkins and Mike Kaufman. And today we have another brand builder episode for you. If you're an Amazon seller or an e-commerce brand, you want to share your story on one of our brand builder episodes, you can apply at brandfortresshq.com/brand builder. And today I'm excited to have our guest on, Beth Benike, who is the founder of Busy Baby. Beth, welcome to the podcast.
Hey guys.
So as we get started, tell us a little bit about kind of your journey with Busy Baby and where you guys are at today.
Yeah, I am a mom that had a baby and had an idea for a baby product. So about 7 years ago, after my son was born, I went out to lunch with some girlfriends and they brought their babies along. And during that meal, the babies were dropping and throwing everything. So I immediately went on Amazon to find a product that would keep my baby distracted when he was big enough to join us at the table, so he wouldn't be kind of that guy at the restaurant. Long story short, nothing existed that would be a clean place for his food and, keep his toys attached, keep him entertained. And an idea popped in my head the next day, and now here we are.
So what made you feel like kind of going from that? Because I think a lot of people have ideas for products and that type of stuff be like, you know what, I can go from I have this idea to where I'm not only going to make it into a product, but also into a brand.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't start out as a business. I call it an accidental business. It started out as I just cut and glue some things together to make a solution for myself and a girlfriend who had a baby a week after me. And it was when she called me, about a month or so later saying, "Oh my gosh, I forgot the mat thingy last night. I didn't realize how useful that was until I didn't have it. Like, you should make this for real." It became okay, how would I do that? Like, how I should make this for real. And so it wasn't even then about building a brand. It was, how do I turn this idea into a real thing? And so I enlisted the help of Bunker Labs, which I think you are very familiar with, is an organization that helps veterans and veteran family members start a business. And I learned the basics of how to start a company. And then from there, it became part of a response to customer reactions to develop additional products to go with the original mat that we had. And so now we have a whole brand product line of products that go together, interchangeable, and it's pretty exciting.
And would you say, Beth, as you fleshed out that product line under the brand, how cohesive is the product line with respect to the actual brand name? So like Busy Baby, is the product line very cohesive to that, or is it generalized more to baby and we're still Busy Baby?
No, it's 100%. Everything we have is to keep your baby busy. And it keeps their things off the floor and within reach so that they can stay engaged without needing, independently.
Awesome. And how many products do you have in your line at this point?
We have eight of the baby products. We did produce a toddler product, so a bigger version of our mat designed for toddlers to teach them how to learn how to write letters and numbers with an app that goes with it. And like you just kind of alluded to, it's a great product. We love it, but it strays just a bit from the Busy Baby, the Busy Baby name. So we still have it. We still plan to develop it further, but we decided to kind of pull back a little bit and focus just on the baby niche.
Gotcha.
You mentioned something about using customer feedback to in making of products and making them better. I love that, and I did the same thing. And I'm curious to know, first of all, how are you getting that interaction? How are you getting in front of those people to ask what their experiences were, and what was the result of some of that communication that you got from them?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it comes from responses, comments to our ads on social media. So we respond to every single comment that we see come through on our Facebook ads. We get emails from customers. If a customer is complaining about something, one of the big probably the only issue we have with our mats is that suction cups don't stick to all surfaces. And if you go to Amazon, look at our product, all the bad reviews say it doesn't stick to anything. Most of it's user error, but it is just a fact. Suction cups scientifically need to create a vacuum seal with a smooth surface. So if your surface is not smooth,
Right.
you can't create a vacuum seal. Suction cups aren't going to work. So we created a bib that uses the same tether system. So if you happen to be somewhere like a picnic table, a textured table, where you can't make a suction cup stick, now you can use our bib with the tether system to keep babies' things within reach, in those places. So that would be one example of how, we looked at the reviews, we got that feedback. In the comments in social media, people complained that our bib was too big for their high chair. In the Midwest, where I live, we have more space, bigger high chairs. In places like New York City, where a lot of people live in small apartments, they have smaller chairs. So we made a smaller version of the mat to meet that need. So that kind of, it's a couple examples for you there.
Cool. So I'm sure John's probably going to want to move the conversation a little bit forward. But before we do, for context, I think it would be valuable for listeners to know what is the diversification of your business in terms of where you're selling? Are you primary D2C through your website, Shopify? Are you primarily Amazon? What's the distribution of how you're selling?
Sure. We started in 2019 on Shopify. And towards the end of 2019, I fumbled my way through setting up my only 2 SKUs at the time on Amazon. As business grew via e-commerce over the next couple of years, it grew to, 50% Amazon, 50% Shopify. Then we started bringing in, we had a lot of people reaching out saying, hey, I own a boutique. I'd love to sell your stuff in my shop. So we started, selling into boutique stores. And now we're onboarding with Walmart, and we're live on Target.com. So we're really trying to diversify more into retail this year. So currently we're 65-70% on Amazon, maybe only 5% on retail, but that's the big push this year, is to really get into more retail stores.
And when you say on retail, so you said Target.com, which of course is, marketplace, but you also mentioned Walmart. Do you mean the Walmart platform, or do you mean Walmart retail shelves?
Well, one differentiation with both Target and Walmart is they both have marketplaces, and they both have owned inventory for their .coms. So with both Walmart and Target, we are going to be 1P. So we would be owned. They're buying the inventory from us. We're shipping it to them. They're fulfilling the orders. And then in Walmart, we're also onboarding to be in stores starting in November.
Great. Awesome.
Wow, that's really exciting.
It's a lot of work. It is not fun. I thought setting up Amazon was a bear. Doing this vendor setup with these retailers is just as much of a bear as Amazon.
We're trying to walk through that same process, not with like a Walmart or a Target. We sell pool tools. And so we're actually starting with Leslie's pool stores and some other, opportunities down that road. And, the process has been like pulling teeth at this point. So we're still hopeful, that the process is going to lead to something successful on the other end. But it is an interesting process for sure.
Yeah, I'll say working with our... Oh, sorry, John.
I was just going to say, I was just going to ask, so that brings up a great point, because this is one of the things we talk about is Amazon is a great platform, but, reaching beyond Amazon, especially looking at brick and mortar. And you talked about that being a bear, and you've been on Amazon for 5 years. So I'm curious, what have been a couple of those big challenges that you've seen so far in making that switch over to kind of 1P with Walmart and some of these other places that are obviously important to continue to grow?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even say it's a switch over. It's just an addition to our sales channels, because Amazon is still a bear. We're dealing with issues weekly still with Amazon, so that doesn't ever go away. We get to do that in addition to onboarding with the other retailers. But it's all just using their systems, and it seems like everyone is. They all had old systems, and now they have new systems, but they have parts of the process in the old and parts in the new. And so you have to manage both, and things get crossed, and there's a lot of silos. It's all just a lot.
So this is probably a valuable piece for anybody who's listening, that either A, it feels like they're ready to move toward retail, or B, wants to prepare their brand to be ready for retail. It would be useful to know what was the process that you went through to get to that point? And I guess I mean more specifically, I mean, you could elaborate on what you've done from the beginning and started to do maybe that prepared you for that transition. But I'm also very interested in when it came to the point where you decided we're ready for retail, I want to get on retail shelves. What did you do? Did you hire an agency? Did you try and go to direct? Did you find some other channel? How did you manage to communicate with Walmart and Target to actually be in the ball game there?
Right. I've got a bit of a unique story, so it won't be applicable to everyone. But as an Army veteran, as a female, I've got some diversity certifications that have helped me on my journey. And one thing I learned this year is deciding versus knowing. We decided we wanted to do retail 3 years ago. This is the first year we knew we actually could. So going in as a younger brand, thinking let's do retail, I went through Target's accelerator program. They had I don't remember, a couple month long baby accelerator where I got to go behind the curtain and learn from Target executives how to create that pitch deck for your line review, how it works with the margins and all the extra expenses on the back end. And going through that program in 2020 or 2021, I thought, that's a shoo-in for me to go into Target. I've just learned from the Target buyers how to get into Target. They know who I am. Like, it's going to happen. Right. Turns out I wasn't ready for Target at that time. So it's a good thing I didn't get in. And then the way it's worked for me now, we decided this year, we knew, okay, now we're actually ready. Now we've handled enough things via Amazon, via our website, with a growing product line, with now having our own warehouse and doing more of the logistics. Now we know more, where we didn't know what we didn't know before. So as I've entered this next phase, I've gotten the opportunities to meet with Walmart and Target because of my diversity status. So I met the Walmart head of diversity, supplier diversity, at a Women in Business conference where she helped connect me to the baby buyer. So that for me was a fortunate circumstance. So I know that doesn't apply to everyone, so it may not be super helpful, but if you do have the ability to get certified as a woman-owned, minority-owned, any kind of certification, that's really, really helpful with the big retailers.
Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty important point, because as you said, not everybody, is going to qualify that way. But if you are someone who would qualify in some way, for some of those specific certifications in that way, take advantage of that opportunity. Don't let that slip away from you, because you can kind of fast track your way into a position like that and get to talk to people that you wouldn't have the opportunity to talk to otherwise. Before John and Matt jump back in here, I have one other question, and that is related to you mentioned there was the point at which you decided you wanted retail and thought you were there, and then the point at which you knew you were ready. I'm curious, what is the one or maybe two very specific things that were standing in your way when you thought you were ready for retail? What are the one or two things that you were like, no, we're not ready, these two things have to happen? What were those things that you had to address before you were there?
I think one is our mindset and mentality. We're a very small, lean team. And we thought we should. So when we decided, let's make it a goal this year. I think 2022 was the first year, like, let's make it a goal by the end of this year to get into retail, to make some progress there. It was because we felt like we should do it. And our mentality has changed now to where we're not doing it because we should do it. We're doing it because we want to do it. So if you're feeling like I should be going down this retail path because that's what I should do, it feels like that should be the next step. That's not necessarily the right thing. We want to do it. It's a strategy. It's actually more of a marketing strategy for us, because people are going back to the stores now. Online marketing, online advertising is not working like it used to. People are physically going back to stores. So if we can be on that shelf or be in that search on, Target.com when people are making a registry, or Walmart.com, that's more eyes on our brand. So it's not even just a sales volume thing. It's a marketing play.
Right. Absolutely. Same thing for us. I'm totally with you in that. We've been making a big push to market our brand externally to Amazon much more this year. And one of the things that I recognize as a really important piece of that is that if we can get on retail shelves, one, as you said, there's still plenty of people, that are buying retail, but also there's plenty of opportunity for people to see our brand in retail where they wouldn't have known we existed and wouldn't have seen us otherwise, and then search for us online, which gives us a massive advantage, I think. I don't know yet because we haven't reached it, but I think it's going to give us a massive advantage in terms of branded search, which is going to help us with our keyword authority on Google and on Amazon for ranking. So we'll see if that theory proves to be true, but other brands that I've spoken to seem to indicate that that is a truism, and I'm hoping to take advantage of that. So.
Yeah. Another thing, one tip that I learned as going through this process is the onboarding part of getting into a retailer is very frustrating and hard. And once you've successfully done one, it makes it much easier to get into the others. So when I was talking to Walmart at first, they were like, okay, like it sounds like you've got the capacity. It sounds like you've got the bandwidth to do this. And I said, well, and I don't know if it makes a difference, but we are selling on Target.com. And they're like, oh, you have a vendor number with Target? And I said, yeah. Oh, well, that's a different story. That's great. So now they know that we had the capacity to actually go through that process to get the vendor number. And that's now making it so much easier to get conversations with other retailers, because once you have a vendor number at one, they see that you're ready to go into more than one.
I'm curious, kind of along that lines. So you're talking about and a lot of opportunity and a lot of progress you've made recently. But just kind of rewinding a little bit, because you talked about a little kind of the breakdown of your business between Amazon and some of the other sources. And well, obviously Amazon is an important place to be. One of the things that we've talked a lot about is diversifying also off of Amazon to continue to have a strong brand as you go forward. What would you say, in the last couple of years has been one or two of your big wins, kind of outside of Amazon and kind of expanding your brand?
I mean, for me, obviously getting on Shark Tank was huge. And outside of Amazon, that was a big expanding the brand moment. Another thing we have done that I'm very proud of and excited about is finding a niche. So, it always just seemed common sense. Our product is for babies. Let's market to the new parents, and that's where we're going to sell. And that's what we've done for years. But we started getting feedback from occupational therapists, pediatric professionals who work with kids that have special needs. And they've talked about how developmentally beneficial our products are and how helpful they are in their practices. And it's now opened up a new world for us to be able to really specifically target those people and reach out to people that work with kids, because that person who believes in our product and think it's helpful for the kids or their families that they're working with is now going to refer that product to multiple people over and over, versus I'm paying $12 to get to a mom on Facebook who might buy it for a friend for a baby shower gift or might tell a friend group about it. But that's about the extent of that $12. I spend $12 on an occupational therapist and I might get, 20 orders. So that's another big thing that I'm pretty excited about and happy about with off Amazon business development.
Yeah, I love that. It's actually, it's one of the reasons why we want to make a bigger push for the Pool Pro market for our products. We've sold the Pool Pros from the beginning, but it really wasn't ever a big push for us. We've always been more of a residential market product. But reasonably speaking, it's actually the Pool Pro market. The only reason that we ever courted them at all, to be honest, was because we knew that if we treated them well and gave them a good product, their customers trust them to know what's the best tool out there, right? So we knew we'd get referrals out of that. that they would, because their customers have to clean their pool in between pool cleanings by the pros. So, and we have gotten many referrals out of that. So, but what's interesting is that we still haven't really courted them. We really haven't pushed that side. And so that's actually one of the things that we really want to push hard on this year, is to really push into that pool pro market to get those referrals. I mean, not only do they buy in bulk, which helps, but many of them are one-offs. Like many pool pros are just a guy that's out there and he's got a route of, 40 houses that he does. So he still doesn't buy a ton of pool poles and nets, but he's got 40 customers that he would potentially recommend us to who would buy our product. So we really want to make a push in that direction. And I think it's a really good point for sellers to look at, how can you move up the chain to individuals who have a status above those that you're trying to sell to, who they respect, so that if you can target that individual and they start recommending you, then that all trickles down.
Well, and I think I can't let go of what you mentioned, which was getting on Shark Tank, which is an amazing accomplishment. So first, congrats on that. I am curious, seeing it as, watching the show, it's interesting, but I'm curious, what was the most surprising part about your experience of being on Shark Tank?
Well, and how did you get there? Like, how does that happen?
So for me, I mentioned Bunker Labs when I very first started having my idea, and I went to this course. That year, the show had reached out to Bunker Labs looking for veterans to feature on the show. I was nowhere near ready for that whatsoever, but I took the producer's email address and I put it into my contact list. And then eventually, when I did launch the product, the first product, I blasted my entire email list. And this was my yahoo.com with, high school sweethearts and whatever. Literally anybody whose email I ever had got an announcement that Busy Baby was live. And when that producer was on there, I completely forgot about it. And so the next day he reached out to me and he says, I see you're on the market. Do you have any interest in being in Shark Tank? And that led to a almost 2-year conversation before, from that moment to when I stood in front of the sharks and filmed my episode.
Wow. 2 years.
So that's how I got there. When I first talked to him, I said I was, obviously I just launched, so I didn't really have much for sales. And he says, well, we take companies at all stages, but we, to best set you up for success, it'd be good if you had like at least 100,000 in sales. So reach back out to me when you get there. But when I got to 50,000 in sales, I also got issued my first patent. So I reached out and I said, I'm not at 100 yet, I'm at 50, but I also now have a patent. Would that make any difference? He said, yeah, that's absolutely wonderful. That's great. But we just wrapped season 11. So we'll start casting again for season 12 in, February or March. Reach out to me then. So when I reached out then that led us to eventually filming in September of that year during the pandemic.
And so back to John's question. What was the most surprising thing?
So the most surprising thing, there was a bunch of surprising things for me. One is that not everybody watches Shark Tank. So I thought it was going to be this huge life-changing thing. For sure, we would just go viral and blast off, and it would just be like, holy smokes, here we go. 2 weeks after my episode aired, I was doing a product demo and someone told me, wow, that's so smart. You should go on Shark Tank. I was like, I literally was just on Shark Tank 2 weeks ago and I still get it all the time. Oh, that's a good idea. You should go on Shark Tank. So Shark Tank turned out to be a great marketing event, for 2 weeks. It was very popular. We had, we get 6 weeks of orders within the 3 days of airing. The most surprising and the very best thing that's come out of Shark Tank is the network of friends I now have. We have a Facebook group of people who have stood on the carpet in front of the sharks, and we do reunions regularly, meet up together. I have a close circle of friends that were all on the show. And I think it's one of the most important things in business as an entrepreneur, because my regular friends, my pre-business friends, they don't understand any of the things that I do during the day. And so if I have a bad day because, Amazon changed the material of my product from silicone to PVC and it's PVC free, and now I have to figure out how to fix that. Like, I have to tell them the backstory of all of the thing. I can't just be like, Amazon changed my material again. Like, I can say that to my Shark Tank friends.
What does
because
that mean, right?
they all deal with it. They're like, oh my God, that's so annoying. Like, do you need help with a flat file upload or something, to fix things?
Right.
And there's other, and even better is the people in the group that I'm close with are the other moms who are trying to, we're all doing this grind, and we have little kids, and we're trying to balance it and do great at both. And so I have someone to commiserate with on all things, life and business. And that's honestly the very best thing that ever came out of Shark Tank, was this network of people I now have to support me, to reach out to when we have issues, celebrate with each other. That's the most unexpected and best thing, for sure.
Fantastic. Well, one of the things I've heard you bring up a couple of times that I just want to kind of double click on, which is Bunker Labs. So a couple of things there. First of all, Bunker Labs, amazing organization that basically helps veterans who want to become entrepreneurs, that are entrepreneurs and are looking to grow. So for folks out there that either, if you're a veteran and you're looking at starting up a business, I definitely recommend you go find Bunker Labs. They have a bunch of resources online. And then if you're interested in getting involved with that program, they still do quite a bit. So you don't necessarily have to be a veteran or get involved. They've got a lot of different chapters around the country to help all types of different entrepreneurs. The other thing is that we're recording this right after Memorial Day. So again, Beth, thank you for your service. And I'm just curious, how do you feel like your military service has kind of influenced your journey as an entrepreneur?
Oh, I mean, it's got everything to do with the fact that I'm still here. Because it's hard. And one thing I talk about a lot with regards to being in the military is, when you're in the military, you do tons of training, so much training. You train for missions. And then when you actually get deployed and you're going on missions and things don't go as you planned in your training, you can't just be like, oh, that didn't work. And you have to, you just have to figure it out. You have to find a way to make it work. Whatever the situation is, you just have to figure it out. You can't just be like, oh, shucks, and go back to bed. So when it comes to this entrepreneurship journey, there's constantly things that come up that did not go as planned at all, or a new challenge. And the mindset that is just ingrained in me from the military is just like, okay, well, how do we find our way around this one? Or what alternate do we, there's always some way to make it work. And I think I know a lot of people that when they hit a wall or they get rejection or something bad pops up, they can sink down into a slump and they can just put their head in the sand and say, kind of have a little bit of a victim mentality. And I just don't think that's something I even can do because, my time in the military, you just do it. You just figure it out. So that's
Right.
for me the biggest thing.
Okay. So before we kind of pivot into, the second part of this, Mike or Matt, any other additional questions that you wanted to ask Beth?
I've been talking way too much, so.
Yeah, I mean, I just, I love people's story and how they ended up in this e-commerce game, and learning about yours. What I also love is our products that solve a problem, that you created something that solved a problem of yours that turned into a business. And I have a similar story with that. But my question for you, what does the next 5 years look like for you? Do you have plans to sell the brand at some point? Are you looking to continue to expand the product line? What does the next 5 years look like for you and your brand?
Yeah, great question. I initially, the plan was to grow it and sell it, just grow it and sell it. Because, I run the company with my brother. He's also an Army veteran. He's got some retail experience running retail stores, but neither one of us has any experience doing any of the things that we do. Product development, e-commerce, marketing. We have never done any of these things. And so we kind of thought, if we can, couple knuckleheads from the Army can grow this business to a 7-figure business, could you imagine if we sell it to somebody who knows what they're doing and has resources, like how far they could take it? Like, I so badly want to see somebody take this and just like take it to the moon. But at the same time, I want to be able to get enough revenue, or like, you know, sell it for enough that I can take on my next adventure. So we need to grow it. We want to grow it to a value that will allow us both to take on our next adventures. We're still having fun. We still have so many ideas. We have a whole line of products that we can create with our patents that are dedicated to aging and disabled communities. So you've got, you know, the elderly in assisted living facilities that maybe have Parkinson's, dropping utensils in the dining facility. There's a lot of uses for our products in other markets. So sometime in the next 5 years, we'd like to expand into that market with the same products, just adapted for adults, and or exit. I mean, I think sometime within the next 10 years, we'd love to exit, but who knows? Who knows what's going to happen between now and then?
Well, the nice thing about an exit is that, you know, if you have this patent and this patent is applicable to those other areas as well, you know, you can sell that portion of the patent that applies to the baby market and hang on to the patent for the rest. And at least then those exit dollars, you can use those, you know, for that next, you know, brand venture. So I think there's a lot of value in that. But we're in the same boat because we're looking for an exit, but at the same time, we've had a lot of buyers who've had interest. But the problem that we have is we know how much revenue is still in the tank, you know, from the things that we already know we need to implement. And so then there's the decision, should I take the money now or should I grow 2 or 3 times what I am, you know, and sell then?
Yeah.
What's the market going to do? Is the economy going to crash? Is, you know, there's all these things that you don't know the answers to. So we're in that same boat and we're going to ride it out for a little while before we exit, I think. But it is a tough decision.
All right. Well, this is probably a good time to kind of pivot to the second half of the episode, which is kind of, you know, about the challenges that you're facing right now. So, you know, Beth, what are maybe a couple of those challenges that you're seeing right now that that you're working on solving?
One is a decline in the e-commerce revenue. We cannot figure it out for the life of us, but there's been a decline in both Shopify and Amazon sales over the past year. And then the bigger issue is cash flow in this, like, I call it like the messy middle part of business growth. We're too big to lean into the startup tactics that I had in the beginning days. And we're not big enough yet to hire the professionals or, you know, engage in the bigger business strategies of a big business. And we've got a lot of money tied up into inventory. So we're kind of stuck of, you know, do we take an investor? I'd rather not. Do we get another line of credit? How do we kind of push through this spot? We made a few missteps last year. A valuable learning lesson was we started out last year, Q1, best year ever. We were 75% growth over the previous year. It never slowed down from Q4. It just kept climbing. And so we're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. If this is going to continue, we need to order enough inventory to support that. So we ordered inventory to support that. At that point, I just hate marketing. It's not my thing. I'm not good at it. But, you know, as an entrepreneur in a small team, you just take on all the roles that you can take on. I do an okay-ish job. I thought, now this is the time I can afford to hire at least a fractional CMO. And so we were fortunate to meet somebody who used to work as a CMO for Fisher Price. Like, what better fit? Huge baby business. She had small kids. She's just this brilliant, wonderful person. And we brought her on and worked with her for about 8 months. We rebranded because our old logo had a busy baby, like a baby with a mat with things connected to it. Well, we're not just a mat anymore. We have this product line. So we got rid of the mat, updated the logo. She really helped us pull our brand kit together and be really concise about who we are and what we do. And actually, for the first time ever, had brand colors and fonts that were like established brand guide. We never did that. I just popped open Canva and like, here's the 4 major colors that we use. And it was never official. So a lot of stuff really pulled together, but what we learned in the end is marketing for a internationally known brand with a ton of resources is very different than marketing for an unknown brand with very little resources. And so the mistake I made was when we brought her on, I took my hands off the wheel and I was like, okay, we got someone who can handle it, and never really kind of kept my head in the sand maybe. And every time sales started dipping, there was always like a excuse. The first time was when gas prices skyrocketed last April or May. And it was like, wow, everybody's afraid there's going to be a recession and, gas is so high, like sales dropped because people are just hanging on to their money right now. And then we saw a little recovery in June, and then they went down again. And we thought, oh, maybe people are saving money for back to school, and just kept kind of making up excuses. Well, in the end, it was just, we weren't advertising properly, and we were way overspending on ineffective methods and got ourselves into a hole. And now we're digging ourselves out of it. And that's why we're now doing some more guerrilla marketing tactics where, we had a VA search on Google state by state for every pediatric occupational therapist, San Diego, California, occupational therapy, pediatrics, write down the name, the address, everything. We're going to be doing, an email flow out to those offices. We're going to send an actual postcard in the mail. And all that effort is going to cost us, less than what we spend in one day on Facebook ads. And hopefully start reaching out to these. And then the same thing with retail stores, where we'll be doing the same thing with the baby stores across the country and sending them information. So, we're in 400 boutiques now. There's thousands of them in the country. So we're going to just do outreach to them and try and expand, sales that way, because online is just not working how it used to work.
Right. So first of all, I love the fact that, number one, that at least you recognize, obviously you feel like it was a little too late to recognize that marketing approach is different for you than it was for Fisher Price, and that individual didn't really recognize that. So at least you're righting the ship now. But I like the fact that, well, again, you didn't give up. Like, okay, here we are, we screwed that up, but how do we fix that? Where do we go with our marketing to repair this? And I think you found what I think is likely to be a very productive way to address that issue, at least in part. It's not going to fix it entirely, but I think it's a great opportunity, and it's a very inexpensive way to go about it. I do have a question though. So you mentioned cash flow, and you mentioned that e-commerce isn't working the way that it was previously. Mm-hmm. I guess 3 questions that are related. One would be, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like both revenue and potentially profitability are both down. And then you also have the issue of this kind of cash flow turnover. Is that a correct assessment of where you are?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And then I guess as a follow-up to that, what are your margins right now? And maybe what were they, say, 2 years ago by comparison? Do you know?
Just offhand, we were looking around like, oh gosh, I'm going to get all flustered out with the numbers. It's the massive increase in our OPEX has shrunk the margins by like 100%. We went from 30 net profit to none right now.
Okay. So there's basically zero profitability at the moment.
None.
You're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So is a lot of that due to Amazon fee increases, advertising costs? What specifically, what 1 or 2 areas do you feel like are the worst areas that you're having troubles with?
I mean, it's marketing costs in general. So like I said, our Facebook and Google and, all the ad spend, digital ad spend. And then it's the decline in Amazon revenue. And what's interesting is we started working with another agency to help us manage Amazon. And It's the first one we've ever worked with. Brilliant guy who focuses on profitability and profitability per SKU. We've never had anyone help us dig that deep into our products on Amazon. And he's been able to reduce our ad spend significantly and double the return on the ad spend and the ACOS, but it's not scaling. So we got it efficient and we're spending less, but as we try to spend more, it just becomes inefficient again. It's a weird thing that I don't fully understand. And then we've got just some weird back end things happening in Amazon that don't make any sense. And we're learning about in 2024, this new AI that Amazon has that's giving preferential treatment to brands that are following the brand guide most closely. So there's things, about the number of characters in your bullets and the number of characters in your title. And if you have more or less, the algorithm favors one more than the other. I don't fully understand all of it, but I get the gist of it. And so we're trying to currently this week optimize all of our listings so that they meet the brand guide specifically, because someone that we got through to at Amazon, sometimes you get people that are not helpful at Amazon, and sometimes you get the rare find that's just a gem. And we found a gem who, really went through this with us, and we have a lot of non-compliance per the brand guide, and that somehow affects the algorithm. I'm not really sure how, but we're working on that. So the decline in Amazon revenue, it's not necessarily the increased fees haven't hit us as bad as the fact that we're just not selling as much.
Okay. What percentage of your Amazon sales are ad-based versus organic sales?
25%.
Are ad-based or 25%
are
organic sales?
I've actually got it fairly handy here. I want to say it's more. So this last week, just under half of our sales came from ads.
Okay. So we're upside down in that. Like, our brand is 70% ads right now, whereas it used to be probably 70% organic. But in our category, a lot of Chinese sellers have moved into that category at very low prices compared to ours. So that's made ranking fairly difficult, thus our external levers that we're trying to pull. But if you're closer to that 50-50 range, I mean, I don't think that's as bad. I don't know, John, you work with a number of clients. Where do you feel the market is right now, in that sense? How many of the brands that you're working with are less than 50% ad-based?
So I would say probably about 30% of them are, but most of them, it really depends on category. So how competitive is that category? And then what stage is the brand at? I mean, like, Beth, you have a pretty developed brand. You guys have a, solid presence from what I've seen in the past on Amazon. So you guys aren't, it's not like you're trying to, really push volume at the expense of maybe like margin or something like that. So, I mean, there are some, but it really depends on category, and how competitive that category. And like you said, Mike, there's been a lot of overseas sellers that have moved into these different categories that make them a lot more competitive. I'd also be curious, and I'm sure you guys looked into this, but just what your market share looks like. Did you guys lose significant amount of market share, in that, over that time period where you saw sales go down?
There have been a few versions of knockoffs that have come onto the market since last summer. I don't like when when you're looking at your listing, you can see, 1,000 plus sold in the last month. And then I can look at my competitors and they've sold 50 in the last month. Like, they're not taking a huge share. I don't have any tools to look at the back end to see specifically how much they're taking from us. But there have been definitely some other products come out that compete with us.
For your key terms, how is your ranking compared to what it was a year or two ago?
I have no idea, because I don't manage that. Unfortunately, our key terms are our name. It's almost all brand search. People hear from other people. Most people are typing the words busy baby into the search.
So how much of your operations do you outsource? Like, are you familiar with like the search query performance report? Are you into that much into the weeds into your Amazon account?
I don't use it because I don't run the ads.
Or is that
so? What's that?
Yeah, I was just asking kind of what your familiarity with that report, because I mean that report, it's not just ads that report shows you. It actually, you're able to look at a keyword level how you compare in terms of impression share and click share and add to cart share and all that kind of good stuff compared to your competitors. So it's a fairly very detailed report that kind of shows you how you stack up in terms of all those kinds of things compared to competitors. So I was just wondering how much of that report you look at, if at all, or if that kind of stuff, the operations on the Amazon side is handled by your service provider.
Yeah, the service provider uses that to update our bullets and description and everything like that. For not often, but that's part of what we're doing right now, since we have to make sure we get our character counts down to whatever the Amazon style guide prefers. We're going through and using that report to optimize the keywords in those bullets.
Yeah, I'd be curious too what that data looks like from one of the tools that Amazon now offers that's a little bit newer is Product Opportunity Explorer. And that might be able to give you a good picture too of just on, obviously not necessarily applicable to your branded terms, but any non-branded terms, like how you compare to your competitors and what that market share looks like. And I think they do, like 365 days worth of that view. So you can get kind of an idea of at least, hey, what is the total search volume? So that way, like, is it just that the search volume is down, or is it that we're losing market share? Because those are two different problems to solve. So that might be interesting. And then the other thing that kind of pops in my head, and Mike, you know more about this than I do, but I wonder if, from an inventory perspective, a service like SKU Drop or something like that to make things a little bit more lean. I don't know, Beth, if you've ever looked into a service like that before.
What is it?
Might be something that's helpful.
So SKU Drop is a service that we started using not too long ago. And the way that SKU Drop operates is that they essentially become a staging warehouse in China versus a staging warehouse here in the US. So we've had a staging warehouse here in the US and California for quite a number of years. Every product that comes in goes to that staging warehouse, and then we divide it to our 3PL and to Amazon FBA warehouses. And it's worked relatively well for us. It gives us an opportunity that we can have an FBA and an FBM listing on Amazon, so we never stock out, or at least rarely. But what SKU Drop offers is there are some significant benefits in terms of, you can actually ship pretty inexpensively directly from the SKU Drop warehouse into FBA warehouses. And you get really good rates even on LCL shipments. So if you're not doing full container loads and you want to do smaller shipments, you can do that and still get a really good rate. They're also checking into Amazon faster. One of the things that we're discovering recently is that check-ins to Amazon warehouses are taking forever. And our check-ins from our SKU Drop shipments have moved much more quickly into Amazon warehouses. But the other thing that it does is, in a sense, it helps with cash flow, because what you can do is, if your staging warehouse is in China and you can ship in smaller shipments, as long as you're still getting, let's say, for us, we don't really get any significant volume discounts from our manufacturers. They give us the same price whether we put a small order or whether we put a larger order. It's never really changed too much. We might be able to negotiate that a little bit, but the point in that is that if you have some break points, get to the break point at least, so you can get a good price on the manufacturing, but you don't have to order more than that. You can order a small amount of product, send it to SKU Drop, and then you can send it in small shipments over to the US so that you have less inventory at risk, first of all. In other words, if the ship goes down, you don't lose as much inventory at one time. Also, if a shipment gets stuck at Amazon, it's just that shipment. So when you're sending in a number of shipments back to back to back to back, one might get stuck, but the next one comes in maybe a week later and it gets in. And so a lot of times it helps you avoid stockouts, but also you don't have as money tied up in inventory at any one time. You don't have to order a massive amount of inventory to bring over to the US and then funnel it out to Amazon FBA. It's a tighter, it brings things tighter. The amount of time between the production of the product and when it's actually in Amazon shipping or, to customers might be 45 days versus right now where for us, if we do it the alternative route, it's coming closer to 90 days because Amazon's taking so long and we've got domestic shipping and the price is higher. So there's a guy, I can put you in touch with him. His name is Jamie over at SKU Drop, and he can walk you through the whole process and explain to you all the benefits of utilizing them, but it's worth investigating. I think it could really help you in terms of cash flow. There's also some other techniques that you could potentially employ, and this will be especially useful because of your profitability issues right now. Getting that cash flow under control is going to be fairly critical. And so there are some techniques that people are using. One of them that was recommended, it's semi-complicated, but it's not really bad. And that is somebody's using basically credit card stacking. And they'll use like a Plum card, an American Express Plum card, which gives you a longer time to pay, essentially 60 days. And with Amex, you can actually get multiple cards, more than you might think you could get with decent limits. And so what they'll do is they'll stack cards, but then they'll only charge at the front end of the month. So essentially what happens, is by that stacking, you've got 60 days before you pay, but you get more than that because if you charge it at the beginning of the month, you've got 30 days before the statement goes, and then you've got, more time beyond. So there's some creative ways that you can do that. Have you negotiated? I assume you are bringing in from China. Yes, you're manufacturing in China?
Yep.
Okay. So have you negotiated with your manufacturer to get, what are your terms right now? When they produce product for you, how long do you have before you have to pay?
Yeah, I think we have great terms. We pay 30% upfront to start production. We pay 20% when it's on the boat, and we pay the remaining 50% 45 days later. So it gives it time to get here.
That's actually quite good. That is actually pretty good terms.
Yeah, we have great partners.
Much better than many sellers.
Yeah, we have great manufacturing partners. And even right now, because we are overstocked, we own our own warehouse. So I'm very anti 3PLs because we do it ourselves. And it's like the most fun part of our job. And what 3PLs charge is just insane to me. But we have so much product right now because we over-ordered last year, and our partners in China right now are still letting us keep our pricing despite the fact that we're ordering smaller quantities right now. So we're very fortunate, at least.
Well, it sounds like you've got a really good relationship with them, at least.
Yeah, they're wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people.
Well, I don't mean to cut. Sorry, Mike. I don't mean to cut the conversation short, but I do see that we're coming up on time. So, Beth, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully, some of the some of the discussion on the latter end has been useful for you. Obviously, anything that we can do to help, feel free to reach out. But I want to just say thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, I look forward to getting this ship turned around and reach back out to you, John, and come back on and tell everybody how we figured it out and how we fixed it.
That'd be amazing.
Love it.
Give the
Love
update.
it. Well, absolutely. Well, we'll definitely have to have you back for that.
All right. Sounds good.